welcome to Oz by Drone.
I'm John.
I'm Greg and he's John, and we're here today, and we're having Rick Smith come and join us in a few moments. He's actually sitting in the background at the moment, but we'll come back to Rick in a few moments. But before we do, John, what's happening this week for you?
Oh, lots of stuff. Actually, I just got off a job this morning. Tom and I went out early before the wind picked up and did a roof assessment. Lovely old place, overlooking the ocean. About 100 years old, where the roof shingles had been blowing off. So the lovely lady that owned the house made us a cup of tea, sat around and watched us fly. So we got some nice photos of a roof. So we've been out flying this morning.
Okay. It's funny you mention a roof. I was recently at a friend of mine's house at Caringbah, and he wanted to see the drone going, and he said, look, I'd like to have a look at my roof. And he had a garden up there that he didn't even know existed. So
yeah, well, you can find all sorts of stuff up on the roof. This roof that we flew this morning was particularly old, so there was no way to get up there safely at all. Quite a steep, slope on it and so forth. But anyway, she was very impressed, and at 82 years old, I said, "You're never too young. Why get yourself one and have a fly around?" So it was a fun morning anyway.
Absolutely. We'll get into the news in just 1 second, but actually, before we do, I just want to say I had so much fun earlier this week in terms of what I've been doing this week with my friends from Telstra on the phone. For those of you who missed it, Telstra, or at least someone pretending to be from Telstra, tried to call me and tell me they were there to fix my internet and wanted access to my computers. And
yeah,
of course, being the obliging guy that I am, I let this guy into a virtual machine and let him play around for a while and strung him on. It was a lot of fun.
And you live streamed it too, I heard.
I live streamed it, and it was so much fun. What's even funnier is they called back. They kept calling back.
Oh, really? And so you can string them on a bit longer as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Anyway,
no, but they called back after that.
Oh,
right.
Well.
So
yeah,
after live streaming them and letting them know that they'd been busted, they kept calling back again.
I heard the police knocked on your door too. They were chasing it up as well.
They did indeed. So our first story of the news today, first of all, Zipline. This is something that CASA has actually indicated may be coming to Australia. Let's just have a quick look at what Zipline's about.
There we go.
So just a brief summary, right? So Zipline is operating in Rwanda. They're doing some drone deliveries of blood, which is a really, really great thing. They're a rural, country. They've got a lot of land to cover as well. And we heard some murmurings from CASA this week that they're considering working out how they could have that come to Australia. So
they're going to allocate some area for it to test it, of course. They've got some areas down in the Australian Capital Territory now where we're doing package deliveries on a restricted site, if you like. Also, the Vanuatu government is also called for tenders for delivering vaccines to 3 different islands. Will require a small fixed wing dropping the vaccines on a certain regular basis. So we had a look at that as well. But once again, as we predicted, the medical needs of remote communities are going to actually demand the regulator to push the technology and allow the technology to start saving lives, which is great, and will benefit as recreational users as well from the technology, and many other industries will benefit from moving forward with being accepted that way to fly and doing the risk assessment and so forth. So all good news. Good on Rwanda, I say.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and some, bringing BV loss to us a little bit faster. But moving on from that, we've got a quick story about Thirsty. Let's see what that's about.
Yep, an Australian farmer shared drone footage of a cattle swarming around the water truck in the drought-hit state of New South Wales. The state, which produces about a quarter of the agricultural output, is now entirely in drought. Now, recently we've showed some of this stuff. For those of you who've been noticing that the country is very dry at the moment. I also noticed this week in the news, Greg, some trucks, a whole convoy of trucks came all the way from Western Australia over to regional New South Wales, bringing food as well for livestock. So that's great. Got to feed us, and that's great news.
And certainly I've heard some news from that the Turnbull government is providing some additional funding to farmers who need that, which is a really good thing. I don't know the full details of that, but I just heard that on the radio this morning.
One of the things that didn't quite make the news, just those in Australia, or overseas, I should say, listening about it, we've had a massive week of fires here. I know the western states of United States had some incredibly damaging and fatal fires, and we haven't had any fatalities yet, but we've certainly got some big fires over here now. Yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of the fire service and helicopters and so forth, I just wanted to recognise the sadness with that chopper that went down recently with a fire RFS guy flying in that, and that chopper went down. I don't know the details of that. Do you, John?
Yeah, pretty much. We just checked out. I'm quite an experienced operator. He was flying a turbine helicopter with a Bambi bucket. So that's not where the water's carried externally in a bucket. And the bucket got caught on some heavy trees, and he was unable to release it in time. Very windy conditions. I mean, we're talking about near 80, 90 kilometre an hour, or 50 knot winds here. And it was just terrible conditions, and it's a dangerous work. Firefighting is dangerous work.
And certainly, drones, I think, are only going to help in that sector. We've talked about that before. But let's just quickly move on to number 3. So the topic is heavy.
Heavy lifter. Here we go. A drone that can haul up to 25 pounds as far as 60 kilometres is slated to begin test flights in Canada skies this week. Drone delivery, Canada, DDC, announced August 3rd. It's received a special flight operation certificate from Transport
UAV
Canada
is basically
to begin testing of its Robin X1400 drone. Now, that type of license is required to operate commercial drones that don't fall under Canada's standard drone regulations, and is usually granted for specific rural areas that aren't densely populated. So we are seeing some movement there. I'm sorry if I'm over the audio, but there we go.
UAV network across Canada, or whichever geographic region we're operating in. And the UAV receives its instructions to deliver its parcel. It takes off autonomously, it flies its route autonomously, and for an easy way to understand this, it's a railway in the sky.
We're targeting remote Canada to start, to provide immediate access or just-in-time delivery ability to remote communities so they can access basic goods such as medical supplies, food, or general commodities.
Whoops.
We need to be able to communicate with these UAVs.
I was trying to get the chat box off and I pressed the wrong button.
Our platform.
No worries at all. Oh, there you go. You're back.
We make sure that we're in constant contact with these UAVs at all the time when they're in flight. As the UAVs are flying throughout the vast terrain of Canada, and as you can imagine, there's mountainous areas, there's plains, there's urban centers and rural. The network needs to accommodate for all these types of different situations. We've partnered with some key satellite communications companies to ensure that we have constant communication with our UAVs, no matter where they are within Canada.
So interesting that Canada is featured there.
Well, this is a race. And I mean, what's interesting about it is that we've got the technology to do this. The question that Commerce has for the UAS industry is how much can you lift all the time? We don't want to lift a paper clip 5 kilometres and drop it. We want to carry something valuable or worthwhile. And obviously earlier you saw carrying blood deliveries. So this is going to be a constant question. Going right back to when Igor Sikorsky went into the US Army and said, when he had his helicopter going, you might want to buy this thing. It's go and build this thing. It's going to be pretty good. And they said, well, will it lift as much as an airplane? And he said, no, a helicopter will never lift what an airplane will lift. They said, how far will it fly? He said, it'll never fly as far as a helicopter, as an airplane will fly. He said, it won't do anything an airplane will do. And vertical lift flying, right back then, it was understood that there were limitations, physical limitations with what you could do. So we come back to the way the story goes. The helicopter, manned helicopters have saved literally tens of thousands of lives since then. And so what we're going to go through all that again now, and we're going to have to explain the physics of why you can have only this much. One of the things that concerns me about going ahead too quickly is that, of course, the risk increases drastically as you start carrying more weight. So what we want to do is start carrying light stuff for a while, you know, get all that together. A few will fall out of the sky, but let's not drop anything heavy on anyone. That's the idea. But it's a good story.
Absolutely. The next one we've got in our news article here, I've just titled it Disclaimer. So there was a message that I saw this week that was posted by DJI, and I'll just quickly read through some of this. The world's largest drone manufacturer says it has limited ability to control how its technology is used. Now, this was following the reported assassination attempt on Venezuelan president using the company's drones. DJI makes products purely for peaceful purposes, the company told DZN, which was where the article was reported, in response to the reported use of 2 M600 drones in the assassination attempt. Now, all of that aside, here's the interesting thing. If you reread what they say and put that in the context of the modding scene, you know, so there are people who are modding their aircraft, while we build some prudent safety and security features into our products, we have limited ability to control what people do with them. As with any technology, if people decide to misuse our products in any way, they have to be responsible for their actions. Now, I know that the whole topic of modding and software jailbreaking and all of that thing is very polarizing, but, you know, it's interesting to have DJI make those comments.
They have to. They have to make it because they're a corporation and you can't say nothing. So the policy, you know, guys are going to have to say, we've got to release some kind of statement, disclaimer. I don't blame them for putting it out, and I don't think they've got anything they can say that really, you know, moves away from the fact that you can build anything you like and fly it. And as you're saying, that you can 3D print a pistol now with a 3D printer out of materials. So people are going to do what they're going to do. But you know, I don't know how you feel about it, Greg, and you know, Rick, our guest, might have some comment about this as it comes on too. But you've got to do something. A large corporation like that's got to say something. The lawyers would have looked at, they would have made it up, and they've just released it because obviously someone has tried to assassinate someone. I've never heard a gun manufacturer put out a statement after someone's been shot with a gun, but you know, who knows?
Yeah, let's bring Rick up on the screen a little bit early. Hi, Rick, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So just a little bit early, it's an interesting story. What's your take on some of this?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, I'm not a fan of modding. I fly because I love to take pictures and get beautiful video photography and explore areas that I can't get into normally by sort of walking through the woods. I can fly over it and get a good view. I worry that any hobby, any technology is always at risk of being controlled more tightly because of the people that do bad things with that technology. And like you pointed out a minute ago, I mean, people are killed every day, unfortunately, with cars and guns and other things. And you can't be responsible when you manufacture that product for the end user's use of that product. But when you deliberately modify something and you get in there and jailbreak the software where certain protections are built in to not have you cause havoc, I think you're really stepping over a line there. And I know that's controversial to say it, but all the drones I fly have not been modded. They use stock firmware on them. I respect the NFZ zones that are set up in the US and just have a lot of fun flying. So
yeah. I'll just you know, acknowledge myself. I don't know if you know, Rick, I'm part of the jailbreaking scene who have done some work, and in my case on the iOS app. But part of the reason for that, just so you can understand the perspective, when I first got my DJI drone in Australia, if you did want to unlock for a legitimate lawful purpose, it was going to take you 2 or 3 weeks for them to respond to an email if you're lucky. Now, very different experience to the US. But having said that, there are other reasons to go and do that kind of research anyway, to understand what's under the hood and what the security vulnerabilities are. I mean, we've all heard about what happened with various military and law enforcement agencies and their concerns.
Yeah, so I'll comment on that a little bit. So I have a clip I'm working on right now. I speak a lot to DJI. I'm on with them, you know, once a week with different people over there in their engineering teams and their marketing teams. And they did an independent study about 6 months ago. They brought a company in and said, look, there's a lot of rumors flying around out there that we're sending information to China. We're spying for the Chinese government. We're collecting personal information on people. we're going to let you investigate everything you want to investigate completely independently. We're not going to be involved in it all. You ask the questions, we'll answer them. And this company came in and actually bought 3 drones. They didn't buy them from DJI. They walked into a retail store, bought them, and ran their tests against them to find out, number one, when it spins up, where does it send the information? What kind of GPS coordination is it gathering? Is there information being kept about the telemetry and the flight patterns? And pretty much on every count, that stuff is locked down tight, and it's up to the user to control it. So I think a lot of that, people are always looking for that salacious story, the dramatic story of like, oh, there's something scheming going on here. But I mean, and I'll do it in the clip in a little more, I guess, organized fashion to explain exactly what that report was. But I asked them for the report, and they were kind enough to send me the full report. So I've spent probably 2 weeks going through it because it's a very exhaustive report. But
yeah, I've had a look through it myself. Yeah.
Then you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty exhaustive, and I think they're doing a good job. I really do. But I get the modding thing. I understand it.
I wasn't planning to chat about modding and hacking today, but just out of interest, right? So the background earlier, before that report and before they fixed a lot of their software, I was personally having a look and reverse engineering and decompiling the source code together with a bunch of other people, and we saw proof and irrefutable evidence back then that there were communications happening that were certainly non-consensual and non-appropriate. Without going into any more detail,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's
with you.
the
And
past.
I don't want to sound like I'm defending them. I'm not.
No,
I'm
no,
not a DJI, talking head. But I love technology, and they just happen.
But
to be
I
ahead
think
of the
they've
curve.
come a long way. They definitely have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And they're sort of a company that exploded, right? They didn't really expect to be this big, this fast. And any corporation that grows at that rate, it's really difficult to keep track of everything. So I'll give them a pass on that. But I feel like they've locked down a lot of things since then to fix it. So.
If the next time you talk to them, here's a question for you. Ask them, if you could, why is it that if I post on the DJI forums that my purchase and sales history from your company is publicly displayed without my consent? There's an example of... I will definitely bring that up. I don't know if people have noticed, but you have a look at your forum post and you can see that you've got what DJI products that you've got listed there against your name. I've asked them about it and never got a response. But anyway...
Sure.
Let's move on. We've got 1 or 2 more quick news stories.
Sure.
So we've got this one, Robotican. Let's have a look at that one. So what this one is, this is a company that's developing products to deliberately intercept drones. So it's a counter UAS or counter drone technology company. We've seen before where fish nets are thrown over drones and different radio technologies. This one's a really simple brute force one. Go knock it out of the sky with another drone.
Well, it won't happen in this country for a while.
Yeah.
There's still so much legislation issues, with that interfering with an aircraft, and so the reason we don't have the hi-fi Wi-Fi guns, they're illegal here for the same reason until drones are reclassified outside of being an aircraft. You can't do it. It's a federal offence. So it's a big one to deal with, but who knows whether law enforcement will have that. At the moment, they don't have that authority to do that. But I'm interested in the technology. It looks like fun.
It's doing some tracking of it, but let's move on. We've got 2 more quick articles. First of all, our favourite topic, BVLOS.
Yep.
Welcome back. Drones are more popular than ever, but right now, pilots are very limited where and how far they can fly them. But today, Kansas drone pilots helped launch a new federal test program that's out of sight, literally. KSN's Michelle Ross explains from the flight path in central Kansas.
Today, Kansas did something that nobody else in the country could do right here on this field, and that's taking a drone beyond the line of sight to improve the Kansas economy.
Currently today, we're restricted to visual line of sight operations. So anytime you're flying an unmanned aircraft, You have to keep it within visual line of sight, and we're trying to advance those regulations to allow more UAS technology for the general public.
To do that, KDOT and 30 other Kansas groups kicked off a federal program just near
So
Salina
certainly some good news there, and that will continue hopefully in other parts of the world as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll extend to Australia eventually as well. But let's
I had
move
a
on.
great, good. I just on that one, Greg. I had a quick meeting with one of the software developers for AvPlan. So our listeners might be familiar with Oz Runways or AvPlan. It's a program that general aviation pilots pretty much exclusively fly with these days, either Jefferson plates or so forth. And we're going to have a look at the possibility of when you go to fly your aircraft, you send a message in AvPlan to the area you're operating, just a basic message that will come up on a general aviation pilot's iPad. So it's just an advisory. It's not ADS-B equipped or anything. It just works through a database. But we thought we'd have a look at the potential for that kind of system. How it doesn't involve the regulator. It's purely like a broadcast. Instead of doing a radio broadcast, hey, I'm operating here, I know there's an airport nearby, you would be a visual image of the aircraft area where you're flying. Your drone would show up on the pilot's iPad. Pretty much all GA pilots these days fly with an iPad. I mean, you take it with you all the time. It sits in the cockpit. You do your flight planning with it, you get your weather with it, you do everything, maps and charts, all electronic flight bag these days. So that's going to move things forward as well. And I saw some of the technology that I was sitting there using. So just to throw in a comment, we'll see how we go. I'll report on that later.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. We've got one more story, which is, the story that we've been hearing about for a while, DJI, and I've subtitled it Another Bigger Picture. Let's have a look at their quick ad on that.
To give you the freedom of flight. But did you think we'd stop there? Let us take you beyond the horizon, where something incredible awaits. It's about time.
Yeah, I reckon definitely the Mavic 2 will be a sensational aeroplane from what I can tell so far. It's been such a popular airframe for the company, and people love flying it. I mean, I love flying mine. I think it's a great airplane, stable, reliable. It's lightweight, portable. It's got everything going for it. Must stick a good camera on it and sell it again. I don't think they can lose with that one, to tell you the truth. And there's going to have a couple of different versions. Pro version, the suggestion it might be a movable camera, more obstacle avoidance directions and so forth. And I think they're probably banking on a Mavic-style aircraft being and remaining to be more popular than the Phantoms are. Perhaps the Phantoms will move, with RTK, Phantoms will move into a more commercial market. And the Phantom 4 Pro's taken a lot of the Inspire territory. And I think that the Mavic has really firmly rooted itself as a great aircraft for those that just want to take good pictures. I think it's a great little airplane.
Absolutely. And speaking of that aircraft, let's bring in our guest now, Rick, who certainly has done, like many others, some videos and commentaries on the event. So, Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, and I want to apologize out of the gate that I missed your last two sessions. I'm so sorry. I know you wanted to get me on a couple of weeks ago, and things just came up. I spent a lot of time on the road traveling, so I do apologize for missing those two events. But I don't know if you guys heard or not. Apparently, maybe you haven't, but DJI has actually canceled the event for Thursday. They've moved it out again.
What?
So what? Your viewers are... Oh, just kidding. I'm just...
You heard it here first. You heard it here. They've canceled the event.
No,
you got me. You got me.
Having a little fun with you there. That's all. No, we're all set for Thursday. We're going to be there. I'll be broadcasting from the event. We'll be taking a lot of pictures. We're all real excited about it, and I totally agree with you guys. Hands down, my favorite quad to fly is the Mavic. This guy is with me every day. I was late joining tonight because I was out flying my last battery on that guy. We had a beautiful day in New Jersey, so I'm excited because I think what they're going to do with this new Mavic 2, if it is in fact that product, is they'll have two versions, like you'd mentioned, the one with the zoom, and then one with a 1-inch Hasselblad camera with probably a Sony sensor behind it, which for me is the perfect drone because it marries the portability of the Mavic with the functionality of the Phantom. But I wouldn't give up on that Phantom yet. I think a Phantom 5's coming, so keep your fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
All right.
No one has specifically said this to me, but you know, you have a look at what those previous leaked photos of some modified Phantom and all of these kind of things. That's got to be coming just around the corner.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it by the first of the year, and I'll tell you where I think it's going to go. I work with a lot of different drone companies. I just got a brand new X Dynamics Evolve drone. It's not even on the market yet, but we saw them at CES and spent a lot of time talking to them. They're coming hard for that Phantom marketplace, and what they're doing with that drone, it's a revolutionary drone in a lot of ways. They're a small company, but they're building this drone that's really coming at that Phantom market, and they've got a removable camera on it. They've got a 4/3 sensor. They've got a 360 coming. They've got a thermal. So I think where the Phantom's going to end up is the Mavic will stick with the 1-inch sensor, which is a fantastic quad to have. But the Phantom 5, I would assume, is going to have a removable gimbal. I don't think they're going to pull that off on the Mavic 2. But that's where I think the Phantom 5 will evolve, is to a removable flying platform you can move a bunch of different cameras through, which would be amazing.
Yeah, that would absolutely be amazing. So speaking of drones, I wanted to chat to you about a topic of a drone for every occasion. If we look at the different categories of people flying, you've got your people who are doing just photography, and then you break that down into the semi-professional versus novices, and you have a look at your acro flying and all these different things. Talk to me about what you think is a drone for every occasion.
Yeah, so for starters, I have way too many drones to count. I lose them around the house sometimes. I forget where the batteries and the chargers are. I seem like that stereotypical old lady that's got 55 cats in her home. I've got that many drones around. But I gravitate to certain drones for certain occasions. I spend a lot of time on the road. Last week was in Singapore. I took the Mavic Air with me because it's really portable and small. The week before I was in Switzerland, and I had a lot of extra space in my case, so I took the Mavic Pro with me, which I like to take for better pictures. I fly smaller drones in the house. So the Spark, the Tela were two drones that I use in the house. I've fallen in love with the new Parrot Anafi. This is a competitive drone to sort of the Mavic Air. But and I know a lot of people are really questioning whether this drone's going to make it or not, but it's a clever drone. It really is a clever drone. So I find myself flying this almost as much as the Mavic.
You know, when I saw that come out, I looked at it myself, and it looked like a very impressive drone. The only thing that was missing from it was the connectivity. Yeah, so I think there's two categories, right? You've got sort of Wi-Fi, which most of the drones fall into. Then you'll have another category I'll call exotic Wi-Fi or modified Wi-Fi, which is what the Mavic's doing with its frequency hopping. And of course, the new Evo does similar things with it as well. And that's a higher technology, raises the price. You've got to have specialized transmitters. But honestly, for most of the flying I do, because we have visual line of sight limitations in the States, I'm getting older, so I can't really see a drone flying a mile away from me. And I'm one of those old farts that follows the rules. I really stay within that visual line of sight. So for me, the Wi-Fi is fine on the Anafi, but I always use a reflective range extender on any of the controllers I use, because that helps to redirect a lot of that Wi-Fi signal downfield towards the quad. But I've used that for, I'm going to say 3 or 4 weeks now, and I just love it. It's very portable, very light. It's easy to fly. And Parrot is an interesting company because they don't, I picked on the Autel. I'm still worried about this a little, but I picked on it a little bit before it came out. I haven't done a clip on it yet because I'm kind of mixed as my opinions of how it is. It's a cool drone, but it's a clone, of the Mavic. It's got a lot of issues, but I don't really feel that this is that much of a competitor, where this one breaks the rules almost on every turn. The way they put it together with the gimbal that flips up and flips down, and it's just a great little drone. Plus the zoom is nice, which we'll see, I guess, on the new Mavic 2 as well. Can I ask you,
have you answered the question? I was kind of all over the place with that
yeah,
answer,
no, that's fine. I'm curious, have you traveled much outside of the US in places which can't do FCC kind of radio, even on Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I have. I've been to Australia a couple of times. I love your country, by the way. It's one of my favorite places to travel. I haven't flown a drone in Australia, so if I end up down there, I'll definitely hook up with you and we go out and fly a little bit. But most of the countries I fly in, I do a lot of research ahead of time, and they're in some ways not as restrictive as the U.S. The U.S. is becoming very, very almost draconian in the way they impose the laws nowadays about where you can fly, and you get in trouble for flying in certain places. Same Singapore was very open to flying. It's a great place to go. There's only a few places you can't fly there. Switzerland's a little bit more restrictive, but yeah, it works great. I mean, I take it with me. I'm always cautious to fly away from cities, not over people, and follow the common sense rules we have in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on from there, do you do much modding on your drones? And I don't necessarily mean software modding. We've covered that a few moments ago, but
Sure.
Tell me about some of your favorite hardware mods.
Yeah, so I'm always looking for ways to make the drone quieter and more efficient, because obviously the airtime is important. So if I can get an extra minute or two out of flight time, that's pretty cool. And if I can make it quieter, that's good too. Not like I want to sneak up on somebody, but when I put a drone up and it's loud, it's annoying. People look up and they want to know who's flying the drone. What are you flying the drone? What are you doing? Looking at my kids. So if it's quieter, that's good for me. And if it's more efficient, that's good. Some of the modifications that have come out recently from DJI around the sinusoidal ESCs and the new low noise, high efficiency props have really fixed it. It doesn't really count as a mod, but I've swapped out all the props on the Mavic Pro and the Phantom series to those low noise props. Other than that, I use extended landing gears, because I feel like the Mavic, when it lands, is so close to the ground that if you land that on the grass without a mat, you're going to get grass up inside the gimbal assembly. So it doesn't really count as a mod, but it does take it up off the ground. Other than that, I've messed around with a few of the drop mechanisms. So one of them is Fifi that fits on the Phantom. You can put it up and you can, we had some fun at a party a weekend ago where I'm dropping water balloons on the kids in the backyard from about 30 feet up. So that was kind of fun. But that's about all the modding I do. I mean, for me, the thrill of it, which is still enchanting to me, is putting that up and getting that visual perspective from above to be able to fly to an area that I couldn't naturally get to and just see the beauty out there is really what it's all about for me. So the modding, not so much, especially from a software perspective, because it does everything I need it to do stock.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about one of the mods you just mentioned, the quiet props on the Phantom 4 Pro. For people who've got the version 1 4 Pro, myself included, a couple of people have been saying they, after putting those props on, they feel their drone's a little bit wonky and not quite as stable. Have you? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I did a pretty extensive clip on the comparisons, because I was lucky. DJI is a funny company where sometimes they'll bring you inside the tent, for a new product, and you sign these exhaustive NDA agreements where you can't talk about it. And then other times you're not inside the tent, and I was lucky enough to be one of the few that was inside the tent for the Phantom 4 Pro version 2. So I got that drone early, weeks before it was announced, got a chance to test it and really run it through its paces. And I did extensive testing on Phantom 4 Pro 1 versus 2, moving props back and forth, checking for efficiency, noise, the motors get hot. And without question, that Phantom 4 Pro version 1 with those props is a major improvement. I felt the opposite. I felt like when I put those props on that version 1, that it had kind of a buttery smooth movement. It was less choppy. It definitely had a better aerodynamic profile from my perspective, but I know that's subjective.
Yeah, that's what I felt as well. I just saw some recent videos, and I know Ken Heron decided he was going to go and get rid of his quiet props. He wasn't comfortable with them, and I'd seen other people. Just thought I'd ask for a bit more.
I don't know. It's funny. It's like anything else, right? Everybody's got an opinion, and it's so subjective. I try to strip back my opinions to more of an engineering approach. So when I did the audio comparisons, a lot of guys will use like a VU meter to just try to listen to it, but there's a lot of ambient noise in the background. So what I did in that clip was actually record the audio, then run it through a spectrum analyzer to see exactly what frequencies were attenuated based on the old props versus the new props. And like I said in the clip, the conclusion was that it wasn't necessarily quieter, it was just less annoying, which is okay by me. Some of those higher pitch frequencies were gone. So I use them. It's only $1 more a blade, so it's not that big an expense, but I like them. I like them a lot. I think they did a great job with them. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, look, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you wanted to add that might be of interest?
By way of apology, I wanted to bring some tchotchkes for you guys. So I'm going to get your address from you, but I'm going to send you 3 mugs. These are the Drone Valley mugs, and they're in the spirit of Australia. They're left-handed, which means we're supposed to be logo on this side, so when you're drinking it, you could advertise the company, but they put it on the wrong side. So you have to drink it lefty if you want this to be out. But I'll send you 3 of these. You can keep 2 of them, 1 for each of you guys, and give 1 away. And I'll send you 3 of the hats, because these are a very coveted product right there. It's the Drone Valley hats. So I'll send you 3 of those. And again, keep 2 and give 1 away. Then I have 1 more gift as sort of a major apology, and that's a brand new Tello. So I'm going to ship you this.
Oh,
you can give that away on your channel as well. This is one of my favorite drones, and it's not like it's that sophisticated. Everybody flies big drones, but this is such a cool little product. That has so much smarts in it that I fly it around the house,
we love it.
And It's delightful. It's just a delightful, fun little drone. So I've got a couple of those. I'll send you one of those. You can give it away on your channel. And I appreciate you inviting me on. The last thing I'd like to say is that a lot of people ask me, what drone should I buy? And my advice to them is always, just pick something, buy it, and go out and fly. Quit worrying about, is the Mavic 2 going to be cool? Is the Phantom 5 coming? Should I buy the Evo or the Anafi? Just find a drone, put it up in the air, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Don't wait. So that'd be my advice if anybody's waiting on the fence with the drone. But thanks again for inviting me on. I really appreciate you guys having me here. No, the drone community is certainly very networked, is what I would say. Yeah, it's a good, I like it. It's like a brotherhood almost, a very family-oriented thing. I'm friends with a lot of people that I'm looking forward to seeing at the event next week. I've gotten emails from a bunch of them that are coming into New York, and we get together with people from time to time and fly. But I was serious about, you know, if I head down under to Australia, I definitely will look you up and we'll do some flying together. Absolutely. And Ken keeps telling me he's going to get his passport as well, and he's already been told we've got the fold-out bed over here to my left in what, it's not really a TV studio, in case you didn't guess, but yeah. Well, I won't impose on you. I'll find a hotel room, but I would like to fly with you. Oh, what was that?
That's all right. That was me. That was me.
Okay. Anyway, look, Rick, thank you very much. And in terms of that giveaway, I'll give away the mug and the hat tonight, and I'll think of something funky maybe for next week for the Tello. See what we can do with that. Sounds good. Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks again. All right, we'll see you guys. Okay, thanks, see you, Rick. Thanks, bye.
How about that? The Tello, he likes the Tello.
Yeah, look, it's interesting that the Tello is certainly a drone that we both like. And let me go on to, and I didn't do a title for this, and that's my bad. The next topic we were going to talk about was Drone Camp.
Okay, let me show you an introduction to Drone Camp. And you'll be able to see this, I think. Here's my Tello. And I know, Greg, because you recommended it, you've got the Bluetooth controller as well that we like to use to make it nice to fly. I've got a beautiful case for it, 4 batteries. This thing's completely cleared out, but the great one is this Wi-Fi extender. So this isn't really a fun line-of-sight airplane, but what I noticed with this also is that you get really rock-solid transmission, and when you're flying around indoors where there is a lot of interference and so forth, this little extender creates a network. And there's plenty of YouTube videos on how to. It's an MI Wi-Fi dongle, and you just power it with anything. You can put it into a USB charging dock. You can put it in your computer, anything to power it up, and it creates a bounce, if you like, between the Tello and the iPhone, and then of course you've got Bluetooth you control. Love the Tello. It's just a fantastic machine, and I think at 89 grams we're looking at. Seeing perhaps a GPS version of it, maybe that's what I'm looking forward to. Well, you know what? But what's it going to do? A GPS version. There'll be some exciting things you can do with it. I think the flying it too far away with GPS in any sort of weather at all is going to be problematic. And of course, it's limited by its radio range. But except as that, you know, you've got a bouncer like that or an extender. Anyway, going to Drone Camp, which you mentioned. This is hot off the press, everybody, and Oz by Drone is one of the major sponsors of Drone Camp. I can tell you that next year, in October in Australia, we are going to have our first residential drone camp. It's going to be for about 75 high school age students come in. They're going to get a Tello when they register for Drone Camp because we think it's the best aeroplane for them to have, very low risk. We can do all sorts of programming with it. We can have drone Olympics. We can race them, obstacle courses, all flying inside, very low risk airplane to have. And then, of course, at Drone Camp, you'll be flying fixed wings and larger octocopters and, you know, Aspires and all sorts of other things. But Drone Camp is going to be very exciting. That's the first announcement we've made of it. So if you keep that on your calendar, if you are a high school age, there is already talk about perhaps having an adult drone camp for those people that want to come along. There's a good reason to have that as well. So we'll see if we evolve into that even before next October. A year away, but we'll let you know here on Oz by Drone, who are, once again, are a major sponsor of Drone Camp, along with a couple of other important companies. So, yeah, there we go. That's the news on that one.
Yeah. Just before Rick, I know he's sitting in the background there. I'm going to ask him a question because this, just in terms of different drones, the Inspire. I'm curious. John's got an Inspire 1, and he doesn't fly it all that much. Where do you see the place of the Inspire, other than the really, really top end? Is it something that a kind of mid-range or top-end hobbyist would be using, or is it really only for film companies?
I think it's mostly professional. So I have an Inspire 2, and honestly, it scares the bejesus out of me because the drone is so big. It's like when you put it up and those arms lift up, it's like a pterodactyl up there in the air, you know, compared to a Mavic. But I do use it for commercial work. So when I've got a shot that I need to do for promotional purposes for a company or of an area, I'll put it up because the camera on it's just great. I get the 3C spin, but it's a lot trickier to fly because you've got to not only keep track of the quad, but also keep track of the camera and spin the gimbal. So I typically do it with 2 remote controls, which means I've got to bring another person along. But it's a fantastic platform. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw that Billy's recently bought one. We saw that Ken's got one in the last week. And yeah, it's just interesting seeing people buying them, but also at the same time seeing some other people not using them as often. So it was just curious.
You know, the Inspire 2, though, has got the later version autopilots in it, Greg. The Pro that I have is well, not first generation, but we're back at Phantom 3 world in terms of dual IMUs and compasses and so forth. The Inspire 2 is a much more refined version of the aeroplane, but I totally agree with Rick. I mean, if I've got to send a pilot out to do a job, and they can do it with a Phantom 4 Pro, take the photo, and that's all they need. There's no way they'll talk me into taking the Inspire. Now, a commercial photography job, the first thing we'll do is look at where it's going to be flying. We won't be flying anywhere where there's any risk with an Inspire 2 or Inspire 1, sorry, because it's just a large airplane, and problems with it would cause, you know, all sorts of hassles. Having said that, you know, again, I suppose one of the risks that I face as a chief pilot is that unless the guys are flying it regularly, you know what I mean? They do plenty of hours in the Mavic, plenty of hours in the Phantom. I know they're not going to have any problems. If they're only taking the Inspire out once every 2 or 3 months, there's the problem. It's going to be pilot recency. So if you're flying an Inspire 2 every second day, chances are you're good with it, and it's going to be a lot safer. But that's another thing that we've always got to consider in terms of recency. And look, strangely enough, overall pilot recency, the best thing you could have is a tello, because all of a sudden I've got to go and fly. I've been flying for a while. I'm just going to get the tello out, and in 5 minutes or more, everything's working again in terms of this. You know, the main muscle. And I think that you know, we run our checklists with a tello, our commercial checklist, because again it reinforces that way of operating. And even on a day, you know, you're inside, you can actually in our company do night recency on a tello. So that means if you've got to go out and do a commercial job at night, you haven't done 3 takeoffs and landings in the last 90 days, then you can go out and do it in the tello at night. And that's okay, you're current, which is, you know, one of those things about just being aware of what the risk and setting up for night flying is. Anyway, I know we got off topic there, but certainly those people that fly an Inspire 2 regularly know what they're doing with it. Absolutely a magnificent airplane, that's for sure. I just don't use mine. I don't use it.
Mine are maybe 10 or 12 times a year at that. So it is, it's overkill for what I need. The Phantom 4 Pro does most of what I need with the 1-inch sensor. I'm fine. And I expect to replace that with the Mavic too if it comes to fruition.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, look, again, Rick, you're still here. Thank you. You can disappear now. It's late for you, so thank you very much for joining. And let's do that giveaway right now.
All right.
Thanks, Rick. So the giveaway, I'm going to make it an interesting one. So every time you join Ausbuy Drone, you see this photograph on the front page. And that photograph was taken from one of our videos. So the first person, in fact, the first 2 people to nominate that, one person will get the hat, one person will get the mug. and we'll talk about the Tello next time. So in the chat room, let's just open up a window so I can have a look. Where
look
is...
at that. 400. I fly my Mavic more than my Inspires, but I do fly my Inspires very regularly. If you do a lot of flying, yeah, I guess that would be right. And I don't take the Mav out on a lot of commercial work, although the Mavic 2, when that's released, I reckon we'll be using it. That's for sure. I reckon a 1-inch sensor on that aeroplane. Are you going out and flying 730 grams? That's half the weight of the Phantom.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the competition to win 400 AGL, I'm just going to tell you the answer. I'll email it to you, and if you can have a look out for that. The question is, what is the location where the photo on our intro page for this live stream, and in fact all of our live streams, where's that photo taken from? And it was taken from one of our videos, and you can go back and have a look at the earlier videos in the channel and you might be able to work it out. Now,
Australia.
Australia, that's a good guess, John. Okay, so what time have we got? We got 11:46. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move on, and we're going to have a look at our Australian video clips of the week. And in the background, if people could be having a look at that and trying to answer that question, the question again is, what is the location where the cover photo that we use on our channel is taken from? Where's that photo come from? And it's the same, it's the photo on our YouTube channel. So with that in mind, let's get to, as I shuffle my pieces of paper, let's get to our Oz video.
Favorite part of the week?
Absolutely, it's a lovely part of the week. So we've got a number of videos. Again, every week these are compiled by Greg Hilton. He has a look at all of the new footage that was shot in Australia or references Australia in some way. And we've got some great creators out there. I'm actually looking at posting this up as a separate clip as well, so people can just focus on that and have a look at the beautiful footage that we have in Australia. But let's go and play it. So first of all here, this one's at point perpendicular, and then moving on to this one, which is a trip around Wilson's Promontory, Cape Tribulation, Bells Beach, 12 Apostles, the Great Barrier Reef, and Mount Berowra, filmed with a Mavic Pro.
Very nice, yep. I know this area. Beautiful.
This one filmed by a guy called The Hiking High. I love those reverse pullbacks. By the way, next week we're going to have, hopefully next week, Greg Hilton to come and talk through these videos that he's put together and do a bit of a little segment on them as well, so that'll be cool. Coming up in just a moment, we've got something from Tiffany Parker. Again, great to see some women pilots and creators. So this one was taken from Darwin and Warraminya. I don't know if I said that right or not, John. I think John's frozen. John's frozen in the background, but that's okay, we'll continue. And this one, the Pink Lake. This one was a channel called Australia's Wildlife, Pink Lake in Western Australia, captured using a Phantom 3 Pro earlier this year. Some beautiful colour there. And then moving on from the Pink Lake, we've got Snowy River Road near Walmerang. This was shot by Danosaurus Vids. This is down in Victoria. And I don't know if Rick from Drone Bally is still watching the channel in the background on YouTube. If you are, Rick, we've got some beautiful places in Australia. There's just so much to see, so definitely encourage you to come back. And then moving on, we've got the Spa Drone Bunbury. Some drone highlights from a recent video production for Southern Ports. This was taken by GeoGMI. Then we've got Jay Parry. Title of this video, The Big Lap So Far. Quick compilation of some drone footage on our lap around Australia. They're about halfway through the trip around Australia, so there's more to come. And speaking of the big lap, that's a great shot looking down on the road there where they are. Now after this clip we've got one more, and this one's we've actually got about a 2.5 minute clip from this one, and it's some really amazing footage from a location called the Rhys Dam in Tasmania. The person whose channel this come from, Ferg Taz, we've had a look at some of his stuff before, but this is just absolutely amazing. So the Rhys Dam is part of a hydroelectric power system which is in the western part of Tasmania. The power station is above ground, located at the foot of some rock-filled concrete-faced Rhys Dam, which is also called the Lower Peenman Dam, and this is part of Lake Peenman. Water from the lake is fed to the power station into two independent 250 metre long tunnels. Both the power station and the dam are named in honour of Eric Rhys, the Premier of Tasmania between 1958 and 1969, and again between 1972 and 1975. But just having a look at the sheer raw power of that water there, that's pretty amazing engineering there. And there we are.
Beautiful.
Another Australian video segment that was absolutely awesome. So thank you again to Greg Hilton for putting that together. And we've reached the end of our show, but before we do that, let's just get 400 AGL. Can you put the names of the winners up on the screen just so we can have a look at that? So congratulations to those winners. I'll have a look at that in a couple of minutes. Before we do go though, some quick housekeeping. As always, please do support our channel. If you're new here, please do subscribe. There's the link. Click the subscribe button. Please also do hit the bell so you can be notified about our broadcasts. Please do go to our Facebook page. We do notify you about our broadcast there as well. Or if you prefer Twitter, we're on Twitter as well. If there is anything you would like to send to us, our address is 5/127 Princess Highway, Sylvania, New South Wales 2224. And as always, if you've got some videos that you'd like to share, upload at gregkuhnert.com. Will reach us for those videos. So
awesome.
I think that's all we've got time for this week. Next week we've got Young360, who is a drone pilot based in Hong Kong. Young has done some great work, and I certainly find it's cool to have people from across our region in our part of the world. And you know, we're almost part of Asia in Australia. They call it Australasia a bit sometimes. So let's have Young on next week. That'll be really cool. Any other last messages from you, John?
No, fly safe, everyone. Weather down here looks pretty good. We've got a lot of fires, so be mindful of that. No flying around any bushfire areas. The wind's going to be strong for a little while. Hopefully we'll get some nice flying weather later in the week. It's been a sensational winter, though, to fly in Australia. Absolutely. Very little rain around, but we need it. But it's been beautiful flying weather. So fly safe, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week. I won't be here with you next week. I'm going to be in Perth. I'm hoping to make a brief appearance, though, so I won't be here for the whole show. So we'll see how we go with that.
Okay, sounds good. And I'm just having a look at the winners. Who were they? Lloyd, was it Lloyd? I'll have a look at that a bit later and send that out, but I'm sure 400 AGL has made a record of that. And
okay.
again, the Tello, big thanks to Rick Smith for donating that. We'll have a competition to give away a Tello, and I'll talk about that next week, and I'll come up with a really cool idea. Okay, that's all for today. Bye for now. See you next time.
See you, everybody. Bye for now.